palace maid asked her father for a perfect male slave and played with him. At 5 years later, the man returned as the crown prince for the prince, in madness, held his head high, vowing to chase him to hell and never let him. Xianyi, knowing the plot, decided to avoid death and tried to stop the male lead's descent. The sister received a man as a gift. The brother, upon learning this, became and stormed into his sister's room to he covered his ears, but was forcibly restrained by Eric. Just after being rejected by the "Are you already eager to toy with a man?" To maintain her villainous image, Xianyi pushed his hand away. "You are like an uncultured scoundrel, barging into my room without even knocking, and having the audacity to lecture me." The brother was visibly, but in Xianyi's memories, the rude Eric had always been repulsive. The father, often away at war, had little time to spend with his daughter. But after the war, he adopted the child of a comrade. Luna's charming personality quickly won the affection of the father and everyone. But just because she was deemed the witch who killed them, does she deserve everyone's hatred? If only father could hold me like that too. Do you always make that face? Or are you doing it on purpose? It really is disgusting. The siblings openly bullied the Duke's daughter. At 18, it was said that Duke Benio's eldest son was about a banquet to choose his duchess. "I said I will not marry. I will stay by the Duke and my brother's side forever." Oh, my lady, how long will you continue to tolerate the whim? Luna and her maid deliberately passed by the doorway. Every word was clearly heard by Xianyi. So childish and boring. Don't think of venting your anger on Luna. Xianyi ignored the siblings' provocations and tantrums. As someone who had failed across multiple worlds, this was her last chance. To avoid creating trouble, he ordered Eric to quickly carry out their father and take him to the dungeon to construct the strongest killing weapon of the Pelate. The monster protagonist Ladian, who served as the medium for entering the running down the stairs in a hurry, he was finally about to meet a crucial character. "Stop, it's dangerous." A pink-haired figure followed closely. "Do you even know what this place is? How dare you come down so—" Eric had always been in charge of the dungeon, and his subordinates were fierce. He had deliberately called so many people here just to watch him. The column engraved with a red pattern marked the protagonist's location, but when the red barrier, there was only a wall behind. If it were Xianyi, she would surely be helpless. But the angel had given him the ability to possess characters temporarily. He used that power to smash through and found the protagonist hidden in. Despite all the noise they caused, he was still sleeping soundly. Noticing the obvious white powder in his food, they realized he had been drugged. To prevent him from being taken by squatting down to gently touch his cheek. Ladian now seemed to be only a teenager. She handed him a piece of candy. "If you remember me, I'll give you 2 pieces next time." Seeing his sister's rare, gentle side, Eric found it extremely and tried to pull her away from Ladian, only to be slapped aside. From the start, Eric not only tried to stop her from meeting Lee, but also wouldn't stop chattering in her ear, grabbing his pink-haired collar. "Shut your filthy mouth." His strength was overwhelming, and he even kicked Eric hard in the... "Are you crazy?" Eric's shouted complaints only earned him another relentless... The protagonist put the candy in his mouth. "So sweet, and she said she'll give me 2 next time. I should tell her there's no need. But seeing this fierce woman beating people to a pulp, maybe I'll just go back to sleep." To obtain the second of the 2 keys. To facilitate meeting the palace maid decided to start with Duke Pelisic. As a military officer of the Empire's, he was entirely clueless about politics and what Xianyi, however, could leverage her previous knowledge to play a subtle money game. To win her father's favor, the maid suddenly received a letter, and her joy was written all over her. The eldest son had sent an invitation. Throw it away? The maid could hardly believe her ears. The young lady who had been pursuing the Duke was now going to miss such an important... Even more unusual, the palace maid, who never dined with her family, now appeared in the dining room, wearing her mother's relics. "My birthday is coming soon. Take it off." Knowing her birthday coincided with her mother, the Duke deeply resented his daughter. The Duke angrily slammed the table, while the green tea sister pretended to mediate. After all, a birthday comes once a year. Wanting blessings is perfectly natural. Was the earlier gift dispute not enough? It turned out all along this was how they silenced Xianyi. "I know, father. This birthday, I just want to remember mother properly. I know everyone says I caused her death, that I am a witch born of... I don't care about others, but I have always waited for you. I believe that one day you will tell... Mother's death was not my fault." Her heartfelt confession softened the Duke, and he let his daughter sit and eat. The old father subtly watched his daughter eat and complimented the food. "Ah, it seems the food suits your taste." The Duke was about to order the kitchen to prepare more of her favorite dishes, but Eric interrupted. Your Grace, about the investment in the jewelry. Have you made a decision? I think the square in Taka is connected to the roads, and transportation is very. The siblings supported each other's point, clearly trying to isolate Xiani, but unfortunately, she had already done her I disagree with the proposal. Rumor has it that the royal family plans to cancel and develop a new area. The maid suggested buying land in Barren instead, but her suggestion was questioned by the inheritance my grandfather left is untouched. It's just sitting in the bank. Then use my name to diversify investment. Father won't lose money anyway. Her careful consideration earned her father's praise and approval of the plan. Anyone in the Pelisic family should possess such courage. Thus, she smoothly acquired the key. But when she saw the protagonist again, she found him being beaten by knights. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you not to lay a hand on him? Are you too stupid to learn? Seeing the key in the maid's hand, the man froze. It is said that this true palace maid of noble blood is destined to become the master of the. To avoid any schemes from this boy, it was Lord Eric who told me to teach him a lesson. But if the rumors are true, I'll be the first to die in the future. There must be some misunderstanding. I was just training him. I'll give you one more chance. Explain to me clearly why Ladian is bleeding. Using this method can strengthen Norma's body. Lord Eric is also aware of it. The man didn't realize he would pay a heavy price for his excuses. The maid suddenly elbowed him in the abdomen and quickly grabbed his chin. Her grip was so strong, it felt like his jaw might. Next time I come back, I don't want to see any injuries on him. If you understand, leave now. There's another little cutie here, waiting for. The man frowned. It seemed he didn't like being called that. Hello, Ladian. She kept her promise and handed him 2 candy, but he refused them. The man's eyes were cold and piercing. Let's get straight to the point. Who do you want me to kill? No one needs to be killed. I will return your freedom and offer you my protection, but in return, you must accept me as your master. Defiant, he stared at her. I will not serve someone weaker. So arrogant. If you're looking for a pleasant toy, then I am not the one. Xiani silenced him by pressing the candy against his lips. Her offer would not change, and she would give him time to consider. Nobles all sought powerful allies and the strongest, but she thought giving him 2 candies could earn his loyalty or make him die for her. How laughable. But she released the restraints on his neck. I told you I would give you true freedom. Back at the estate, the man mentioned again the invitation sent to the eldest. Only he knew that the man was not a suitable match. Arthur Benio, outwardly warm and kind, was actually a man driven by profit. Since his engagement with the palace maid, he needed to marry a woman of higher value. Using the banquet to find a suitable, the man reviewed the replies to the invitation. Luna's name came up, though she was an adopted daughter. Without the Pelisic surname, it was said the Duke cherished her greatly. The man's gaze turned cold. It was clear Luna was not in his plans, but he noticed one response was missing. Pelisic Xiani. The man stepped outside and I suppose he's finally given up on you. After all, he sent you letters multiple. You never replied, not even once. Oh, that's wonderful news. But his habit of nervously rubbing his fingers betrayed his true feelings. The woman who had once pursued him madly and annoyed him beyond measure dared to reject him. It was infuriating. Little did he know, in the future, when he begged she would have already found someone. He would imprison a foreign prince just to satisfy his twisted desires. But to the seemingly tamed protagonist, "Dear master, welcome to my trap." The maid returned to the dungeon to tend to Ladian, who was asleep, and apply. The guards hesitate, torn between their duties. Isn't it dangerous to go in? If something happens to the maid, we'd be doomed as well. But the maid had already entered. She applied the ointment, starting from his cheeks and moving down to his neck and chest. You've had enough, haven't you? Ladian had spent every day locked in the cramped time crawling by. As he endured the monotony, repeating the same meaningless existence, it was as though he had lived through each rebirth brought renewal, but also an inescapable prison. I'm just like you. I've had enough too. When you asked me what I want, all I ever wanted was to live. That's it. According to the original, once Ladian left the dungeon, he would become the heir to the royal family. If she didn't want him to see through her, she had to help him. This time, I really hope to rise from the ashes and escape this detestable world. So let's work together. The maid emerged from the dungeon, prompting 2 curious guards to enter. How is he asleep without a sedative? Jealous that the maid showed kindness. What's so special about this monster of a boy? Unbelieving, he reached out to touch, but the next second, Ladian flipped over and grabbed his throat. Why are you sneaking in here like a rat? Terrified, the man froze, nearly wetting him. Let us go? Let you go. Recalling the woman's words, I just want to live. The killing machine softened and let him go. Leave before I change my mind. The entire incident had already reached Eric's ears. The maid didn't even bring a weapon, yet she faced the one that 3 men couldn't approach alone. Could it be that the maid's abilities have abilities? Shiani has abilities? Time rewinds to the early days of the Mateo Empire. The goddess sealed a demon, and 3 elven magicians who became the founding patriarchs of the kingdom, representing the royal family, Grand Duke. Speculation about these founders left Eric deeply puzzled. It seemed even the royal family had long lost their let alone Shiani. If she really had such power, why would the Duke adopt me and Luna, while ignoring his own daughter? Shiani's only outstanding quality must be her unparalleled beauty. Little did he know, the maid had long prepared. The candies she gave Ladian were actually antidotes. Using her knowledge from when she became the little princess, she developed medicine disguised as, Miss, why are you making candies? Shall I make one for you too? The maid shook her head frantically. Didn't you add kudzu root earlier? I'm afraid it's not to my taste. I'm not talking about candy. The maid smiled faintly. After applying an ointment for 30 minutes, a pair of calloused hands covered in barb became unbelievably smooth and even smelled pleasant. She instructed the maid to distribute it to the Miss, won't you give some to the Duke? He'd surely be pleased. To improve relations between the maid and the Duke, the maid worried endlessly. There's no need. After all, he has universal. The expensive magic stone is commonly known. The Duke often used magic stones to treat wounds from war, but he also suffered from their side effect. Her Majesty the Queen hasn't appeared publicly. Rumor has it she developed red spots on her face. Moreover, who would use a magic stone for dry hands? After much persuasion, Shiani finally relented. Fine, we'll do it your way. It's not a big deal anyway. Might as well improve my reputation. She instructed Daisy to prepare a gift as well as flowers, but before the hand cream the butler was already boasting about its effect. Look at this skin, soft as pudding. The young lady is so thoughtful. She even prepared these for the servants of the Duke's face showed awkwardness. Oh, is that so? It does seem pretty good. Could it be that the Duke didn't receive anything from the Duke huffed angrily, glaring with bulging eyes. The butler continued to fan the flames. Perhaps it's because the Duke uses magic stones, so she didn't think to give you anything better. It seems the Duke will never experience it. That's enough? The Duke, thinking of his daughter's indifference, became melancholic. Perhaps she doesn't even. I've been suffering from the after effects of They say raising children is useless, but the butler defended the young lady. Honestly, Your Grace, the young lady practically raised her. You've spent years at war and rarely and after Madame passed away, she grew up almost entirely alone in the estate. Most importantly, when you finally returned to the capital, you brought Lord Eric and Miss Luna with you. So you're saying that I deserve not receiving any ointment, right? Instead of that, why not ask what exactly the young lady did wrong? To be mocked as a witch. Rumor has it that the Pelisic family has a red-eyed outrageous. The Duke banged the table furiously. It seems the Pelisic family is being he muttered to himself. The Duke had long been aware of the ridicule aimed at yet he had always turned a blind eye. Now he felt regret. The Duke understood that concern offered too late at this point, what could be done? I failed as a father. And that child likely no longer wants me. Unbeknownst to him, the emperor held Shiani in high regard. Duke Benio and his son visited the emperor. Seeing the outstanding young Arthur Benio reminded the emperor of someone dear. The emperor's sister had a child with the master, but both perished shortly after. Duke Benio's household, tied to had eliminated the emperor's nephew. To reduce succession disputes, it's all Benio's fault. I don't even know if my nephew is alive or dead, yet his son stands tall and proud. The emperor felt resentment, but concealed it behind a calm. I hear Duke Benio is hosting a banquet. Perhaps this is an opportunity to select the future duchess. Suddenly, a messenger interrupted their conversation. News arrived from the market. The land intended for the royal family's new business had mostly been purchased by the dukes. Instead of anger, the emperor appeared surprised. He greatly admired Shiani's boldness and foresight. The cunning Duke Benio noticed immediately. The emperor rarely shows his emotion. What could have surprised him so much? This matter is significant. Your Majesty, You just mentioned the Pelisic maid. Did something interesting happen? We have a close relationship with the Pelisic, he added suggestively, as he nudged his son with his elbow. Hoping to earn favor, he continued. Although our engagement was enough, we spent considerable time together. But the emperor refused to play along. Since your engagement is annulled, you cannot claim a close relationship. I can't disclose more details, leaving the father and son restless with curiosity, driven by self-interest. The father and son visited the Duke's estate personally. The once dismissive young Duke Arthur now sought to restore his engagement with Xian, but Xian's attitude caught him off guard. He had thought she was taming a beast, only to find she had charmed a loyal puppy, blushing at every word, and unable to tolerate even a speck of jealousy. The once reviled waste of a maid had single-handedly defeated elite knights. Since obtaining the dungeon key, she gained her first follower, who willingly, offering her an umbrella and showing endless, serving her attentively and loyally. Lord Eric, though he had always led the dungeon, still recognized that, as a blood member of the Pelisic family, Xiani was likely the next heir. To gain further support and attract others who were still observing, she would need to prove her strength decisively. To know your enemy and yourself is the Xiani observed the training grounds through binoculars, learning from her follower that those in blue uniforms were SA-grade, high-level trained, but they relied on restraint tools to tame the slave Norma. Whenever Norma resisted, her neck would be choked. Such cruel rules were said to be implemented on Eric's advisor's suggestion. Although the Duke had entrusted the research entirely to Eric's man, in Xiani's eyes, standing idly by was just as it reminded her of the time when she was branded as the red-eyed witch. And her father didn't just fail to stop it, but watched coldly from the side. She expected clashes and fierce confrontations, but instead, the training ended with choking device. What kind of training is this? She decided to overhaul this terrible system. Just then, a red-haired figure dodged attacks from the trainers effortless. Valentine, you rascal. Stop dodging. Raise your sword properly. Hearing the name, Xiani recalled the plot of the novel. Valentine was the illegitimate child of the Desilio. After his brother's exile, he came to the Duke's estate. When Ladian became the crown, Valentine usurped the throne and became. Later, he would help Ladian in crucial ways. What are you talking about? If you fight well, I'll retaliate. Valentine boasted, if you're that good, I wouldn't hold back either. The redhead smirked insolently, kicking the trainer to the ground in one move. The trainer even vomited his last. How dare you act like you're in control? He stomped the trainer into the dirt. Without these restraints, you're just a pawn who can't control anyone. Do you think holding my life in your hands gives you the right to lord over me? Suddenly, a woman entered the training ground. Her followers tried to stop her, but miss, it's too dangerous. Valentine is as dangerous as Ladian. But Xiani was confident. She quietly picked up the trainer's sword and faced Valentine. Though not as strong as her opponent, her teacher had once taught her, the only way for the weak to defeat is to find their weaknesses. Xiani noticed that though Valentine appeared to dodge attack, he was careful to minimize movement in his right. She deduced that his right shoulder was in. She focused her attacks on his right side. Finally, his sword fell from his grasp. Valentine clutched his aching right hand, grimacing in pain. Everyone was stunned and began to see the maid in a new light. But Xiani remained calm. Next time, you'd better not pick up a sword. I'll assign you a task better suited for you. Valentine was indignant, declaring the match invalid. You attacked after finding I had no information about you. This match was unfair. Don't tarnish the training rules with such, he said indignantly. But the rules he mentioned made Xiani laugh. Beating the trainer and causing chaos in the school. Is that what you call the rules and proper victory? She retorted, why don't you wait until you lose your head before you talk about rules again? Valentine was left speechless. Xiani placed her hand on his chest and softly warned him about the etiquette in the Desilio. How should the defeated show respect to the victor? What are you implying? If you wish to reunite with your king and family, don't forget the kingdom's laws and customs. Think carefully about who has the power to send you back. The one you must bow to now is the one who can truly grant you that, unaware of their exchange. Ladian clenched his fist tightly in frustration. Xiani's words made Valentine realize the situation. He quickly knelt and flattered her, kissing her hand and offering praises in the name of Desilio. He then rubbed his cheek against her hand. Since it was this hand that spared me, please use this hand to save me. I am willing to obey you. His puppy-like obedience amused Xian'e, but she didn't realize Ladian had stormed off in anger. How dare she? Flirt with another dog in front of me? Didn't she promise to be my only master? Women's words truly are deceptive. To win back the sulking Ladian, she decided to stay and watch. But how long was he going to train? Who's his trainer? That's Serville. They say he's the Duke's most trusted knight. He only came to the research institute on the condition that he could regardless. It's too late to put the child through this. Isn't this going too far? The trainer's strictness seemed to be overwhelming Ladian. A powerful strike sent Ladian into a berserk state. The man's body tensed as he stood, emanating a terrifying aura. It was clear he had lost control and launched a ferocious attack, every strike deadly. Ladian, wake up! But it was to no avail. The situation spiraled. Even the magical restraints on his neck failed. Get the tranquilizer gun. The others scattered, running for their... The trainer's life was hanging by... Xian'e tried to snap him out of it. Despite being paralyzed by his overwhelming aura, she forced herself to remain calm. Come here, isn't it mealtime now? I'm hungry. To her surprise, Ladian approached her, but she knew she couldn't show fear. Doing so would only invite death. As soon as he touched her hand, his rationality returned. He finally regained clarity. Xian'e let out a sigh of relief, thinking her risk had earned his forgiveness, only for him to slap her hand away. Don't pretend you don't know, he said, sulking like a spoiled child. Winning his favor was proving difficult. No longer playing the fool, she decided to stand up for herself once and for all. She had endured years of blame and ridicule, even from her own father, who had often turned a blind eye. Her brother, too, had only ever watched with glee. But now, even after sending a heartfelt gift to her father, she was met with hostility, facing an angry crowd of retainers. Her presence seemed to chill the very air. She took the letter handed by him, bearing the royal seal of the emperor. His Majesty had personally sent a letter to the maid. Before she could read its contents, the retainers began accusing her loudly. Miss, if you've committed, you'd better confess now. To warrant a letter from His Majesty, this must be something significant. The crowd grew suspicious. They assumed Xian'e must have done something to anger the royal family. Meanwhile, Eric watched with a smug expression, clearly having instigated the retainers. Even her father sided with them, demanding she admit to her mistakes. Normally, Xian'e would have felt indifferent, but as fate would have it, before coming here, she regained the memories of her mother had died in childbirth, and her father had treated her coldly since she was a child, even seeing her as a disgrace to the family. If that's the case, then I'll live quietly in hiding forever. Facing her father's insults, she remained expressionless, her heart numb, having already lost all hope in him. So, you're not planning to defend yourself? Why should I defend myself? What did I do wrong? The original Xian'e had suffered. She decided to stand up for her past self, to prove her innocence. She declared to everyone, if I've done anything wrong, I'm willing to bear the responsibility for the Pelisic name, even sacrificing my own life. Then those here who have insulted me must take responsibility for their baseless... For once, the usually submissive daughter made such a bold vow, leaving her father utterly shocked. He angrily pounded the table. Xian'e, what are you saying? But when the maid frowned at the letter, the retainers erupted again. I knew it would be something like this. Miss must have committed a grave crime. Breaking the engagement wasn't enough. Are you planning to disgrace the Pelisic name further? How much more? Damage. Before the accusations could continue, the Duke intervened. Silence. Xian'e was about to speak, wasn't she? For once, the father showed some decency. As Xian'e began to reveal the contents, the once arrogant crowd immediately fell silent. It turned out that Xian'e had intended for the royal family's new commercial. Not only was the emperor not angry, he greatly admired her foresight and courage. He even expressed his anticipation to meet her at Arthur Benio's welcome. I have never tarnished the Pelisic family name. I was simply informed unilaterally of my engagement being annulled by the she declared with unwavering composure. In an attempt to... They gathered such a large assembly of retainers, such an elaborate show, she said, handing a boxed gift to her. It seems giving you a box of ointment is this difficult. Then she turned and left. Initially, she had wanted an apology or even to see them kneel. But seeing her father's regretful, stunned, she realized those things no longer mattered. Correcting prejudice wasn't an easy task. Suddenly, Eric grabbed her arm. I hear Arthur Benio is visiting today. Oh wait, isn't he? The one who got tired of you and kicked you to the curb. Could it be he's here to see our dear Luna instead? Such childish taunts felt utterly boring to her. She turned away, unwilling, offended by her dismissal. He grabbed her again, refusing to let, only to have her smack his hand away. Take your filthy hand off me. Don't touch me. I know you're trying to provoke me, but I'm too busy for you. Calling out his childish left Eric feeling humiliated. His embarrassment stung worse than any. At that moment, the maid announced that Arthur Benio had arrived at the Duke's mansion. Another self-important guest had shown up.